I think it's time that we welcome everybody back
Hi.
to another Daily Dose episode. And today is going to be the best episode ever.
It's going to be a good one.
I think we said that every time, but it's going to be the best one ever.
Always.
So today we're going to talk about debunking the dosing of neuromodulators.
Sounds like a good one.
It's going to be a good one. So what do we mean? What are we going to debunk? Well, we're going to talk about toxins, Botox, Dysport, this, that, all the toxins. And we're going to try to really go into a little bit of detail and help people understand the differences between them, why they're different, and if they're different at all. And then also a little bit to understand how and why units and pricing are different for these products. And I think it'll help people understand these types of things when they're looking at ads or looking at going to get these products at different places and locations. So I think that's a good summary of what we're trying to cover today.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, why don't you take it from the top, Sam? I think the first thing we want to talk about is Botox. I feel like that's the word that, comes up most often when people talk about neuromodulators. And I think people really kind of equate Botox with all the neuromodulators, but it's important to understand there's a lot of different ones. Kind of like Kleenex. I think there's, everyone calls a tissue a Kleenex, but Kleenex is just a brand.
Right.
And there's puffs are amazing. Let's be honest.
They are so good. And so Botox is just a brand, and there are plenty of other ones out on the market. Their formulation can be a little bit different, which is why I think it's tricky with some ads when they talk about the prices, which we'll go into that. But there's Dysport, Xeomin, Daxxify, Jeuveau, Latibo. Am I missing any?
I don't know. You just said all the ones I know.
I feel like that's most of them. But there's multiple ones out there. And then how is it different? Why is it different? Some injectors prefer certain ones. Some patients think certain ones work better. Sometimes injectors will use multiple different toxins on the same patient because they believe the spread is significant enough to do that. That also is partially for how we reconstitute, though. But Dysport in particular is one that I think can get a little bit confusing for people and also be misleading with ads.
But I think one thing, we've said it before on our previous podcast, I think one thing to really clarify is that all of these, they're all botulinum toxin. Mm-hmm. And they're all really type A, which is a type of the toxin.
Type A,
they're all type A botulinum toxin.
So they all have the same active ingredient. Type
exactly.
A.
Yeah. They all have the exact same active ingredient. They all have slightly different carriers, potency, whatever. But at the end of the day, they're all basically the exact same active, potent ingredient.
Yes. There's only one. So Xeomin, some people will try to say is quote unquote cleaner because they take that protein out, they strip it.
Yeah.
However, there's counter arguments to saying when you're altering it, is that cleaner or not cleaner? Like, I guess you could look at it two different ways.
I think at the end of the day, they're all sterile and they're all pretty clean, but it matters if there's protein or not in there, right?
Yeah.
But I do think the take-home message for people who are out there and looking at getting neuromodulator for their wrinkles, if you're looking to paralyze your facial muscles, I do think it's important to understand that all of these products that have been approved for use in America are basically botulinum toxin.
Right.
They all have different names. They all have different potencies. They'll have slightly different other ingredients. But at the end of the day, they're all botulinum toxin, and they will paralyze your muscles.
Yes.
Okay. And I think that's...
And they all pretty much have the same outcome. Like, they all have that outcome, and they're all FDA-approved brands in the U.S.
Right. So that's important to understand.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, it's really important to understand that if you sit down, you kind of open up pricing lists for different places. If you're shopping around for the product, you might see really crazy variations in the pricing that people are offering for these treatments.
Yes.
And it can vary a lot, right?
Absolutely. And so part of that is with real product, and the other part could also be because it's counterfeit. So that's another topic.
We'll get into it. Yeah, we can kind of go. But I think it's important to explain maybe for our listeners, especially people who aren't in this space, to understand if they're looking at getting a treatment and they see an ad that says, hey, toxin, $5 a unit or $3 a unit, which is crazy low.
crazy low.
Yeah.
But those ads, if they're saying Botox, that's probably.
So first and foremost, it's important to probably be very specific and take a look at what product they're offering.
Correct.
Because I think if it's Botox versus Dysport,
there's
it's very, very easy to make that unit pricing sound really low.
Yes.
And the reason is because for every 1 unit of Botox, it's basically 3 units of Dysport.
Like 2.5 to 3.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. So but just roughly speaking.
So if you got 50 units of Botox, it would be 150 units of Dysport.
Exactly.
So yes, that price seems low, but it ends up being exactly the same.
So let me say that another way. 150 units of Dysport is about, in general, about the same price as 50 units of Botox.
Correct.
And so if you're going to market it per unit price, then that per unit price of Dysport is going to look a lot lower, roughly a third of what Botox might cost.
And it doesn't mean you're getting more toxin. Like that, that's the equivalent of them. So
That's the equivalence,
it's
yeah.
just the formulation is different. And
Yeah. So 150 units of Dysport is, as far as the toxin effect, as far as the paralytic effect on the facial muscles would go, it's roughly about 50 units of Botox. So that's got to be one of the most common ways that someone might, for lack of better words, like trick a person into thinking that the price is really, really low. But when you get there, well, you're going to need 150 units to match 50 units. And if you do 150 units at $5, guess what? It's the same as 50 units of Botox at $15 a unit. So it's the same exact thing.
It's the same exact thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But they'll put tox for this. So they're not saying
so the minute you see an advertisement that says tox or neuromodulator or something that doesn't specifically say the brand or the product that you're going to be getting, then that's sort of a red flag to say, oh, well, so is the price actually that low? Probably not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I guess think of it as teaspoons to milliliters, right?
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Like you can say that something is, what is a teaspoon? I can't remember. A tablespoon, I think, is it 15 milliliters? I'm going to have to look that one up. Here, I'll fact check while you keep thinking. Let's see.
The same amount so teaspoon, milliliter, same amount, just measured differently. That's a great way to look at it.
Teaspoons are 5 mLs, right? Isn't that right?
know.
There it is. I remember this from giving the babies medicine. Yeah, so a teaspoon is 5 milliliters. Yeah, so 1 teaspoon and 5 milliliters, same thing.
Yeah.
So if we say that, if you've got 3 units of Dysport, it's basically the same as 1 unit of Botox.
Right.
Okay.
And so why would someone choose that over the other? So the spread is a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're covering a big area, like say a forehead, I think that people love Dysport because you get that spread along that whole frontalis, the forehead, versus other ones where you're trying to be a little more precise, like if or a smaller muscle.
Mm-hmm.
So like a DAO.
So less spread is what you're looking for.
Yes. However, that being said, like we will reconstitute differently. So we'll do a 1-to-1.
Yeah. Back when I started, we didn't have this whole we didn't have like a whole shelf full of different options. We had basically Botox. And I remember the day Dysport showed up and we're like, what's this?
And I love Dysport.
And it was the hardest thing in the world for me to be like, what do you mean? So 50 equals 150, 50 equals 150, 50. I could not wrap my head around it. But before Dysport showed up, I mean, when we were trying to cover a broader area, it was like you just said, it was about reconstituting at different concentrations, trying to use that to really be kind of, if we had to be very specific, we'd concentrate the product more, take it up in less volume.
Yeah.
But if I knew that I had to get that to hit, more places and actually spread a little bit more, that would be we would then take it up in a higher volume and use a higher volume injection across a larger area. So we would do that a little bit on our own.
Yep. And when we talk about reconstitution, so that's another thing that people, like we're going to talk about the counterfeit. So in places that might be quote unquote diluting their product.
Yeah, there's another possibility.
I don't know. We should grab a vial and show people. Like that vial, when it comes, it has a cap on it. It's sterile. There's nothing. You don't see anything. So you have to reconstitute it.
Yeah, it actually looks empty.
Reconstitution is necessary regardless. So when people say, what are you mix? They mix something in the vial. You have to put saline in that vial. Mm-hmm. But the amount of saline doesn't necessarily mean that it's over diluted. It just means that the way that reconstitute it, that spread is going to be different for the different areas that you're trying to target. But that being said, sometimes people will put a ton of saline, especially if they're not experienced, they don't understand it, they don't know. They'll put too much in there, and then they'll charge you for however many units, but you're really not getting that many units.
They'll use a more diluted product. And it can just be kind of on accident for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, wait, Jordan, you got the product?
Yay!
You got it? Hey, can you hold it up in front of one of the cameras for us so they can kind of take a look here? Jordan's going to be kind enough to, and Jordan is a hand model in her
so you
spare
see the
time.
cap? You see that on the top? There's that cap. So that's not been opened. That's just completely, it came right out of the box. Now that would, if you look, there's nothing in there.
Does it look empty, Jordan?
It sure does.
Yeah, but that's a full
So
vial.
that's a full vial of tox.
Yeah, because the product in there is dehydrated and lyophilized, and it has to be reconstituted with some sort of liquid. And it's in there.
It's in there.
And we know it.
So we all reconstitute a little differently. And like we were talking about, that's what you guys would just use if you just had Botox. You would just do like what we say 1-to-1 or 2-to-1. Some people do 4-to-1. But sometimes inexperience means that they think they're giving you so many units and you're really not getting them.
Yeah. So
or intentionally.
So now we've got just kind of recap as we go. Obviously, when we're talking about the neuromodulators, and there's plenty of different products on the market, and some of them have different potency. So the number of units isn't always the same between products, and that's one place where pricing might look different.
Yes.
Reconstituting the product, also there's a lot of variability there. It can be taken up in a small amount of volume or a large amount of volume, and that can be done for reasons where we're trying to cover an area or treat more specifically. But the problem is it can also be done in a way that then it's difficult to really know how many units are in a certain amount of volume. And so it could be billed as more units in a particular amount of volume.
Yeah.
So that's one place someone might be, again, if the pricing looks super low, maybe the number of units being delivered isn't necessarily, what's being advertised. It's hard to know.
Yes, or it's counterfeit.
Yeah, and then there's this whole counterfeit thing. I mean, that hit, what was it? I mean, there was a big wave of it about, was it in the beginning, towards the beginning of the year? I can't remember. I remember there was a big wave of, news that was coming through, and I think they were coming from overseas. I think there were fake or counterfeit toxins that were being shipped out, and people were buying them on websites that looked legitimate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And there's like this wave of people, even nurses, unfortunately, on social media that are like, what's so wrong with that? Look how much cheaper it is. Look, I can do it myself. I just watched a video.
So what can be wrong with counterfeit toxin? Well, let's first start with the fact that this is one of the most potent toxins known to mankind. Like, literally, let's not forget that botulinum toxin is a toxin that can, when, if administered incorrectly at the wrong doses, this is a very seriously toxic substance. It paralyzes muscles, and it can paralyze everything from, the muscles that cause wrinkles, but also can cause paralysis of muscles we need to breathe.
Yes.
And so, that is a real thing. And so I think that when we think about, well, is it really that important? Absolutely. Especially if we're talking about a neuromodulator, I'd say especially like something like botulinum toxin, it is of the utmost importance that all of the control and all of the regulatory things that are available be in place, because it is an extremely potent toxin.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so if there's any place where it's coming from that has any lapse or any cracks in the regulatory processes, and, and all of the types of things that have to go into making sure that the toxin is produced correctly, is dosed correctly. If any one of those things is off, the consequences could be dire. So I do think that we want the highest quality products, and we definitely want all of the regulatory types of things in place for this.
Regulations, absolutely.
Yeah. And
it's
I think,
a must.
and I think it's so important that when these types of things are being purchased, I mean, we always, I know, are purchasing the products through very vetted vendors that have been around for a long time, have been dealing in the space of pharmacologics for a long time, pharmaceuticals for a long time.
They're all coming from FDA approved.
I'm trying to think what kind of regulatory sort of limitations.
They have to be with like Board of Pharmacy. Like they have to, we have to vet them too. That's part of it. Like Board of Pharmacy requires every single Galderma, we have to check to make sure that their stuff is up to date with the Board of Pharmacy. Allergan, any person we get product from, we have to vet them. Even if they're a reputable one, we have to make sure that their things are up to date.
Yeah, that's right. So like all of the vendors that you use, you have to report. If you buy a pharmacologic agent from a vendor, you have to report that vendor to your Board of Pharmacy.
We have to check to make sure they've
been vetted by the Board of Pharmacy.
They are
Exactly.
vetted by the Board of Pharmacy.
There you go. So I think that's, when we think about our patients who are out there looking to get these services, and people out there who are, in other places and far and wide, and they're listening to this and they're thinking, well, so, okay, now I understand that this could be fake. It could be coming out of, poorly diluted, whatever. But if you're looking to really kind of vet your spa, your med spa, or your injectors, I think it's really, really reasonable to ask your injector, hey, where do you guys get your product?
Yeah.
Because you can easily then jump on the Board of Pharmacy's page for that state, and you can look up to make sure that that vendor has been actually vetted by the Board of Pharmacy. Is that correct?
Yes. And then, so there's like those products, but then the counterfeit products, the box, like they could bring it into the room, into just a patient. It looks like it says Botox.
Right, yeah.
Like they act like they are that product. So that's tricky. And there's ways to spot it.
But
and there's
understanding
ways
where they come from is probably important. I think making sure that these things are being purchased from, vetted vendors is, I think, probably one of the most important things.
Yes.
And you just have to make sure that that your med spa and the people who are providing the injectable agents are going through that and looking at those things, and they're on top of it. I think it's so important.
One of our reps told us, and it was a good one, because people are buying this stuff from like Alibaba, and on top of that, like, didn't one of our reps for the lasers say that someone was trying to buy a laser from like Alibaba, and they're like, would you buy your car from there? Would you feel safe to go buy your car from there?
Geez, I don't know.
Would you?
No. No.
So you're putting stuff in your face. You have no idea
and there's so much stuff
the regulatory on it, and you don't know what's in it. And then also, it doesn't go through that same regulatory process. Is it sterile? And then you're injecting that in your face, so then you're at the risk of infection and abscess, and you could have a systemic response.
And if it's the toxin and it's not measured correctly,
correct,
I would say that there are much, much more dire consequences that would be potentially could happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And
it's tough, I think, in the current day and age. I mean, the conversation around just like dupes, right? Like the Lululemon stuff that was available on was it through Amazon? I think they were selling straight up like fake stuff that looked and acted apparently the same. Labels were the same.
Yes.
I mean, it's crazy. So this stuff is everywhere. And I think we're in a day and age now where with so much, online ability to purchase things from so many different sources, it's tough. I think we have to be very, very careful. And as a consumer, if they're coming to us, then I think we are the ones who have to be able to, if our patients ask, or if, at least be able to instruct them and educate them on how we are making sure we don't end up with those products in our office, which I think is so important to our practice.
Absolutely. I agree.
But the takeaway here is that there are lots of different neuromodulator toxins on the market.
And Dysport's not cheaper. It's just measured differently.
And Dysport's not cheaper. And they all are pretty comparably priced depending on, every place gets slightly different pricing, and prices vary between locations and like regions of the country. Everything's a little different in different places.
Yeah. And like the amount that you purchase from a place. And so you see some places like, why are they cheaper? They could be diluting it. They could be buying counterfeit, or they could just have product where they got a great deal from their vendor, or they purchased so much, and so they are able to offer certain things certain times of the year. There are specials that they give that help the practice to be able to grow. They also do those things when you hire new injectors. So the level of experience that that injector has impacts sometimes some of those prices as well.
And I think this might be a little bit too detailed, but I think once you start to think about that, So this volume pricing, I think, leads to, it can be good because it can drive the price of the product down for a practice. So what I mean by volume pricing is if a practice really commits to using one product, it's just like, getting all your gas at one place. You get points and then the price goes down as you get more from one place and you always go to one place, right?
Yep.
So there's the same concept here in purchasing for healthcare. And as a practice purchases more of a particular product, and these products are all tied together. A lot of times, a neuromodulator, same company might also make breast implants, for example. Well, suddenly if my practice decides to really kind of focus on using all of one type of breast implant, and then I'm like, well, they also have a neuromodulator, and so all these points rack up if I'm just using all this one product, one product, it does end up giving you a real advantage in terms of your pricing. So then you can actually lower the cost of the product for the practice, which would allow you to then potentially lower the cost to the patient. Now that's great, but the only problem then I think that happens is you really do kind of limit your options. And I think I think it's so important to have flexibility and the ability to always find a shoe that fits the person. Instead of having a wall full of one shoe, you really, really want to have options. And so that's why I think it's nice to be able to use, maybe be very comfortable with a particular product, maybe like it more than others. But I think it's important to understand the different properties of different products. Like you just said about Dysport being maybe a little bit better in terms of larger areas and being able to dilute it out and spread it out versus more focused stuff where we can concentrate other products better. That's why it's so important to be able to have different products from different companies available and to be able to use them when you need them for the right application.
Yep.
So I think, it's also important to maybe look at why the pricing is so low. And if a practice is really sort of gung-ho about a particular company and their points and really accruing, the bonus points that come with using those products, it might set off a little alarm in your mind and make you realize that they're probably going to really try to push to use those products and not the other ones.
Absolutely.
Maybe almost to the point when it would be better to use a different product.
Yep.
So I do think that it does take away a little bit of our ability to have variation and a variety of options available to be able to use in particular settings.
Yeah, and we like to try all of them. We like to do our own little studies. We do split studies we just had 2 of the girls. We injected half their face with one and half with the other. And Julie and I weren't supposed to know what we were injecting on each side. We just had one person who would know that. And then the patient, like the girls, also didn't know what we were doing on each side. So that way it was a blind study. And just to truly decide whether or not one is better than the other. So we have fun with it to just try to learn and see what these products can actually do. They all try to tell you, oh, ours lasts longer, or oh, ours does this. And you can't just believe that. We like to kind of see it and trial it ourselves. So we have fun with it. It's nice.
And unfortunately,
but we like to use all the products.
Yeah, and unfortunately in this space, I think there is a bit of a paucity of evidence-based material. I think it's not super easy to find high quality studies in the scientific literature. There is stuff. I mean, we definitely have literature that is peer reviewed and it's, planned out and people are trying to look at things. But the reality is that the studies, unfortunately, a lot of them lack quality. So it's hard to know. So
then sometimes when we really want something, we show Dr. K the study that backs it, and then he tells us that study is so flawed, and that
they usually are.
It makes sense. So then we don't end up getting those products. Well, unfortunate, but
you occasionally throw a good one my way. It's okay.
That's all right.
All right. Well, I think it's safe to say then that anytime someone picks up an ad and sees Botox for 50 cents or Tox for 50 cents per unit, you might, if it sounds too good, you might want to just double check and make sure that it's legit.
Because it probably is too good.
Probably might be too good to be true.
And it's a debunked dose, okay?
Yeah.
Wait, does that?
Debunked dose?
No,
or
dose
debunk?
debunked. Dose debunked. Their dose is debunked. Dose debunked.
It literally doesn't make sense.
I like it.
If you like it, I like it.
Okay.
So thanks for tuning in. We hope that we've shed some light on yet another med spa topic that hopefully comes up and people were wondering about. Please keep sending us questions. Please keep sending us topics that you want to hear about, because this is what actually fuels these little podcast recordings at the end of our days. I think we're supposed to tell you to click some button that makes you subscribe so that you actually know when we release these.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Right? Isn't that how it works?
Click.
Yeah. Click.
Like.
Bait.
Subscribe.
Subscribe.
Yeah. Yay.
Was that too much aura farming, or are we okay?
No, we're good. We're good.
The content of this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Although we are licensed medical professionals, nothing discussed in this episode should be taken as medical or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified provider regarding your own health or treatment. We do not accept any liability for decisions made based on the information shared here.